It's a good idea, I think, if you're looking for some reading material other than Kay's book, that you take a look at the wisdom of the Proverbs. Proverbs are often the title of words that come from the wisdom of an ancient Ukrainian or a wise leader of the people in Ghana or Tanzania, or from a nation or a country or wherever it may be. So the proverb of that country. Here's an interesting proverb, it seems to me, and from my point of view, it sure fits this morning. Listen to your father who begot you, or who gave you birth, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Have you heard that before? Oh. Listen to your father who gave you birth, and do not despise your mother when she's old. Buy truth, purchase truth. Do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will gladly rejoice. He who begets a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. Now we can update that considerably, since much of the Old Testament is male-oriented. But in this case, it would be quite appropriate to say that fathers have, I think, a significant impact on both sons and daughters. And that fathers, grandfathers, uncles, brothers, cousins, all in a sense have an impact on the members of their family who are sons and daughters. And so I was impressed by that. And I know that we've had some conversation nationally about manhood, that whole issue of whether we're weakening men. And I don't know of anyone who's been weakened by anything that I've said here, and hopefully that hasn't happened, and I know it hasn't to our sons. I was fascinated by a search I did on manhood. If you want to find something interesting, turn to the internet and look up manhood, and you'll find all kinds of options for you to consider. For instance, there's manhood plus. I thought, whoa, there's somebody who has some insight that there is something special about manhood and that there's something plus about manhood. And I was surprised to discover that manhood plus is a supplement. It's a form in a gummy, sweet gummy that you can take if you're a man, and it supports and improves your energy, vitality, and stamina. I wonder what happens if women take it. Will that improve their energy, vitality, and stamina? Well, one would assume so. And there is also then a posting on manhood suffrage. Now, you've heard about women's suffrage. This was the effort on the part of women all the way back to Adam's wife, who said, if you don't pay attention to women, they will rebel. Well, he didn't pay attention, apparently. Simply summarized, it's one man, one vote. And it's the way this nation was operated at one time. The one man, one vote was if you were white, if you had property, if you had some degree of privilege. And so that one man, one vote was truly just for men. However, over the course of time, there are key dates that show that there has been a slow evolution, if you will, toward all persons having personhood suffrage. 1856, there was a law passed by the Congress. 1865, with the Emancipation Proclamation and the at least announcement that African Americans were free and were therefore citizens of this nation. 1866, very specific language about who could vote. 1870 again, 1886, 1920. Oh yes, women got a chance to vote. So manhood suffrage now became personhood suffrage. 1924, Native Americans were identified as persons. I find that appalling and amazing. 1952, 1965, with the equal rights for voting that was passed. Manhood suffrage. And there's a link to biblical's manhood, which noted that the Bible does not cite physical strength as a characteristic of real manhood, in spite of people like David and others who were very manly, as it were, as it was described in their power and their ability to lead and to overcome the enemy. But that's not what was important in the Old Testament. What was important indeed was integrity, responsibility, and love. Yes. And to stand for truth in all aspects of life. You'll remember that it was Micah who said, what does God require of you? Of all men, he said, all men, meaning men, that's who he spoke to. But to all people, we understand, he said, what is required to you is not that you have wealth or possession or great value, but that you live justly. Not just talk about justice, not just wish for justice to happen, but let your life be an example of justice. That's different. And then he said, no, men, what you need to do is love kindness. God, that's going to demasculize the Old Testament men, that they have to love kindness. No, if you love kindness, then you understand how kind God is, how kind God's message to us is, how God, the message of the prophets is as it comes to us and gives us insight and wisdom and understanding. So embrace kindness. And more often than not, I think I have found every time I embrace kindness, kindness comes back. Sometimes it's with a little look of confusion, but kindness comes back. And then finally, what man was supposed to hear from God is, I don't need all your burnt offerings. You don't even need to sacrifice your child to prove to me that you love me. Just walk humbly with me. And in addition to that, I believe, would be you walk humbly with one another. There's no pomposity. There's no arrogance. There's no, I'm better than you. There's no, I've got the power, you don't have the power. There is walking humbly and kindly with one another. That's what the Bible tells us. That's what Micah tells us. So here again, these words from the Proverbs. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy the truth. Buy the truth. It's almost like you have a rummage sale out there. And you can choose whatever you want on that table. But if you see truth, invest in it. Invest in it. And when you have the truth, think it through and consider it, and don't give it away. Don't compromise it. Don't discount it, but share it. That's what he's asking in Proverbs that you do with your children. Share the truth that you have discerned, that you've worked hard at figuring out, and you looked at all of the options on that table, that say you can buy one of these, you can buy half-truths, you can buy imagery, you can buy something else, you can buy fantasies, you can buy anything on the table, but you're going to buy truth. Jesus said, I am the truth and the way. That is to say, he understood how easy it was to sell yourself to untruth. And so listen to me, watch me, think with me, pray with me, and I'll share with you truth. And then share that with your sons and daughters. And he says, get wisdom. That is to say, buy wisdom, buy discipline, buy understanding. Those are tough things. What is wisdom? Making the mistake and you learn from it and then you don't make the mistake again? Yes, that's wisdom. You know, I often say that when I get into my car, I sometimes forget to lower my head and I bang my head against the car door. Once in a while, Nancy's car is smaller and I'll close the door on my head sometimes. What's going on? Or do you keep forgetting? Where's your wisdom? Making a mistake, doing something wrong, saying something to someone that is hurtful and painful and saying, I'm sorry. Sometimes they need to remind us. And then not doing it again. And asking for guidance. Lead me not into a trial. Help me avoid, we say to the Spirit of God, that we will not do sin. The father of a righteous person, someone is not self-righteous, but is righteous, has great joy. He who has a wise son, and I add daughter, delights in them. May your father and mother be glad, and may she who gave you birth be delighted. I think these two quotes go hand in hand. And they go hand in hand because they speak about the way in which each of us are called upon, fathers in this case, since it's Father's Day, sons, yes, uncles, yes, grandfathers, yes, male neighbors, yes, ministers, priests, rabbis, yes. If they know the truth or are struggling to understand the truth, share that with the children that are part of their life, even the neighborhood boy or girl who is next door. Once again, I quote Micah, God has showed you what is good, but to live justly, to embrace kindness, and to walk humbly with God, and I would humbly add with one another. What an insight into the shift from the do's and don'ts, the law, which said you got to do these things, and if you do these things, that'll work for you. Jesus encountered the person who said, I've done all those things. And he was wise. He was wise. He said, if you do, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. And he walked away because he had sold himself to the possessions he had. So not every child has experienced a loving, caring, gentle, compassionate, forgiving, and wise and thoughtful father. But parenting is not easy. And when you think about some fathers who have had horrible backgrounds and horrible lives, it's understandable perhaps why they transfer that horribleness through them to someone else. But it's not acceptable if indeed you love God. If you want indeed to follow Jesus, what we are all called to do is think about what our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and the children after that will be. And they'll hopefully turn back and say, I love because my father loved. I love because my grandfather loved. I love because my brother loved. I love because my uncles loved. I love because my neighbor showed me love. He didn't any of them sell the truth they had purchased, or the wisdom that they had, or the discipline that requires us to think thoughtfully and carefully. Yes. Father's Day. Happy, joyful, and ask God to guide each of us as fathers and as grandfathers and as brothers, as sons, and as neighbors. Amen.